Welcome back to the program. Let's keep rolling. On top of everything, we just played clip for you back-to-back, Trump calling out Harris on her past positions, or at least her current positions, and then her in her own words, as the media tells us that we're lying about what she has said in the past. She also said she would eliminate the filibuster so they could pass the Green New Deal.
Again, back to the United States Congress, here's my point. If they fail to act as President of the United States, I am prepared to get rid of the filibuster to pass a Green New Deal.
My next guest is the communications director at Power the Future, Larry Behrens. Welcome back to the program. I want to play this for you. We just played it in my monologue. Not only does she want to eliminate the filibuster so they could ram the Green New Deal through, she also said if it were up to her, she would end fracking. Let me play that again.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yeah, and starting with what we can do on day one around public lands, right? And then there has to be legislation. But yes, and this is something I've taken on in California. I have a history of working on this issue. And to your point, we have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact on the health and safety of communities.
So how would the Democrats, air fingers quote, bring down prices by canceling more land leases, cordoning off more land from drilling, not approving more pipelines, and in her own words, end fracking?
Yeah, there's no way. And the American people know that, right? They have dealt with the Biden-Harris administration for the last 3+ years and know that prices have done nothing but skyrocket. If you want to end fracking in the United States, not only are you putting hundreds of thousands, maybe even more Americans out of work, you're driving the cost of a barrel of oil north of $200, maybe even $300 because it all has to be imported. And I don't even know if she knows that when she talks to these crowds in 2019 during her short-lived presidential campaign. She started spouting the only way to describe it is insane stuff. She wants to all these levers of democracy. She wants to cast aside the filibuster so she can pass the Green New Deal. They had brought the Green New Deal before the Senate. Not a single senator voted for it just a couple of years before. And so they want to shove this down your throat. And I am shocked that they could find someone to the left of Joe Biden. But I guess if you're the most liberal senator in the Senate, even to the left of Bernie Sanders, these are the type of results you're going to see.
She also, I remember, was it in 2020? I think it was that same climate change town hall. She also said, well, what we need to do is reconfigure the dietary pyramid and eliminate meat. What we're going to replace protein with, I have no idea. But so basically, we're going to be bike riding, vegans, living in government housing, hoping for government health care. We already have government education. That sounds like some weird retro reverse regressive Marxist society, like we're going back in time. Oh, they also want to use windmills like it's Holland in the 1500s.
Yeah, and that's none of what you just said is hyperbole. That is exactly true. She wants to redo the food pyramid. At that same town hall, she said she wants to, at the highest levels of government, examine what the American people eat. And so Joe Biden wants to tell you what to drive with your EV. Kamala Harris would want to tell you what's on your kitchen table. Well, I mean, the answer is probably nothing because we won't be able to afford anything. And the price tag for all of this absolute insanity that she wants, and she's not even trying to hide it, is $10 trillion. That is, for comparison, the Inflation Reduction Act was about 4% of that. She wants to spend so much money to put these products right in front of us and force feed them down, our throats because she knows her Green New Deal is not going to get through any other way. This is the insanity that we're seeing from Kamala Harris, and that's why she probably didn't make it to the first primary in 2020, but now, I guess behind closed doors, she's a presumptive nominee.
Well, really what would happen here is, and let's be honest, she's got the backing of Hollywood, big tech, probably going to end up with a large share of Wall Street money, is that when you and I can't afford these things, her backers will, right? It's sort of going to be the people eating steak and lobster and drinking champagne deciding what the little people should be able to have, how to plan for the little people, right? Take away their independence, make their mobility, near impossible, lock down the economy, kind of like the pandemic, and, we'll figure it out eventually. I mean, it might take 30 to 40 years to have the technology that allows us to power the modern economy on wind and solar. And, we're not going to mine our own battery material, right? That would be bad. We'll just have more children digging for it in the Congo. And that's the problem. There's like a dominoes that go down. If bread gets too expensive, the Marxist or the radical egalitarian says, well, it's the grocery stores. So levy a tax on the grocery stores to subsidize the cost of bread. When the bread goes even higher, they say, those wheat farmers are terrible people. You know what? Actually, there's a step before that. First, the grocery. Those bakers, those commercial bakers are bad people. Lay a tax on them. And then when the bread prices go up, they say, the farmers are terrible people. Lay a tax on them. And all bread does is get more expensive while they dine on the fine fare, trying to figure out the next program for the people.
You're absolutely right. They take these things that are essential to our life, not just our livelihood, to our life, things like food, things like energy, and they try to get their mitts to control them 100%, because when you can control them, well, then you can make sure your friends are in charge of this. And your analogy of the lockdown is exactly right. Kamala Harris has said she doesn't call it a climate crisis. She calls it a climate disaster, a climate emergency. And so what does that mean? If there is a President Harris, heaven forbid, is she going to declare a climate emergency? Are we going to be back locked down because we want to save the planet? At what length is she willing to go? And it's astounding to see her tout, look how we did it in California. If there is a poster child for energy failure, and failures in a lot of ways, California is that. They pay more for gas than any other American, including Alaska and Hawaii. Their electric rates are through the roof, all because they have just tiptoed down this green road that Kamala Harris wants us to go down. They're not even fully down it as far as she wants to go. And so it is really no exaggeration to say so many things will be unrecognizable if she implements the plan that she was talking about just a few years ago. And that's why it's stunning to see Democrats abandon democracy and nominate her behind closed doors, because I don't think they've really examined what's going to happen when she implements this plan, or sadly, maybe they have.
Maybe Power of the Future or some other organization. That kid that was tracking Taylor Swift's tail fin number of her jet and all the carbon she was emitting? Well, as Kamala Harris gets her campaign jet, maybe somebody ought to track the climate crisis coming from her campaign. But then again, she's doing it for the people, right? You and I will have to ride bikes or wait for the government rail or the clean energy bus that goes 4 miles an hour. But she's doing it for the people. Maybe we ought to see how much carbon her jet spews.
Well, and that's exactly it. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if she tried out the same excuse John Kerry did. Oh, for special people like me, this is how it has to be. But your point is exactly right, and that's why we look at the lockdowns. The lockdowns didn't affect everybody equally, right? There's some folks that still got to, have their hair done. There are still folks who got to eat at fancy French restaurants in California. And so Kamala Harris is perfectly fine, because she's going to continue to fly around in the jet. It's you and I and everyone else who has the audacity to not want the government involved in their lives that's going to have to try to figure out how we're going to navigate through this world with all these rules and regulations that she wants to force down without the help of Congress, and maybe just probably executive edicts is probably what she's going to do.
All right. I got to leave it there. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, man. Good to see you.